Donald Trump won independence here in Michigan by 16 percentage points, which was critical to Donald Trump winning the state's 16 electoral votes. Now there is a big debate within the Democratic Party here and around the country about the best way that Democrats can win back Michigan. Vice President Biden, last night on this stage, Senator Elizabeth Warren said, quote, "We're not going to solve the urgent problems that we face with small ideas and spinelessness. We're going to solve them by being the Democratic Party of big structural change." What do you say to progressives who worry that your proposals are not ambitious enough to energize the progressive wing of your party, which you will need to beat Donald Trump?
Because we did it. I was asked to manage an $87 billion plan to be spent in a total of 18 months that revived this state and many others, because it kept us out of a depression with 0.2% of waste or fraud. Secondly, I was part of the organization and within our administration that pushed bailing General Motors out, saving tens of thousands of jobs here in this state. Number three, I also was asked, as the mayor of Detroit can tell you, by the President of the United States to help Detroit get out of bankruptcy and get back on its feet. I spent better part of 2 years out here working to make sure that it did exactly that. We invested significantly in this city, in transportation, anyway, the point is we've made significant investments in this state. I expect in this city, that's why the mayor endorsed me.
Thank you, Vice President
Didn't
Biden.
endorse the senator.
Senator Gillibrand, what's your response?
To the people of Michigan, I know exactly how I beat President Trump. I've already done it. I took a bus tour to talk about Trump's broken promises here in Michigan. He promised no bad trade deals. Not only did he not have bad trade deals, he started a trade war with China, and he just signed on to another bad trade agreement with NAFTA 2.0, a giveaway to drug companies in Mexico. I took the bus to Michigan, to Ohio, and to Pennsylvania, telling people that he has broken his promises to them. I lifted up their voices, I listened to their concerns, and I offered real solutions. And I've done this before. My first House district I ran in was a 2-to-1 Republican district. I won it twice, and I haven't lost an election since. So I can bring people together in red, purple, and blue areas.
Thank you,
more
Senator
than that,
Gillibrand.
I can get things done.
Mr. Yang, in poll after poll, Democratic voters saying that having a nominee who can beat President Trump is more important to them than having a nominee who agrees with them on major issues. And right now, according to polls, they say the candidate who has the best chance of doing that, of beating President Trump, is Vice President Biden. Why are they wrong?
Well, I'm building a coalition of disaffected Trump voters, independents, libertarians, and conservatives, as well as Democrats and progressives. I believe I'm the candidate best suited to beat Donald Trump. And as for how to win in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania, the problem is that so many people feel like the economy has left them behind. What we have to do is we have to say, look, there's record high GDP and stock market prices. You know what else are at record highs? Suicides, drug overdoses, depression, anxiety. It's gotten so bad that American life expectancy has declined for the last 3 years. And I like to talk about my wife who's at home with our 2 boys right now, one of whom is autistic. What does her work count at in today's economy? 0, and we know that's the opposite of the truth. We know that her work is among the most challenging and vital. The way we win this election is we redefine economic progress to include all the things that matter to the people in Michigan and all of us, like our own health, our well-being, our mental health, our clean air and clean water, how our kids are doing. If we change the measurements for the 21st century economy to revolve around our own well-being, then we will win this election.
Congresswoman Gabbard, your response?
Donald Trump won this election because far too many people in this country felt like they've been left behind by both political parties, by self-serving politicians on both sides who are more interested in partisan politics than they are in actually fighting for the people. I'm speaking the truth to people all across this country about the fact that people in Flint, Michigan are still being left behind, still being poisoned by the water in their system, because every single month we are spending $4 billion on a continuing war in Afghanistan, $4 billion every single month, rather than ending that war, bringing our troops home and using those precious resources into serving the needs of the people here in this country, people and communities like Flint. That's the kind of leadership that I'll bring.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Booker, your response?
I'm grateful, Jake. Look, This is one of those times where we're not staring at the truth and calling it out. And this is a case for the Democratic Party, the truth will set us free. We lost the state of Michigan because everybody from Republicans to Russians were targeting the suppression of African-American voters. We need to say that. If the African-American vote in this state had been like it was 4 years earlier, we would have won the state of Michigan. We need to have a campaign that is ready for what's coming. An all-out assault, especially on the most valuable voter group in the highest performing voter group in our coalition, which is Black women. And so I will be a person that tries to fight against voter suppression, that can activate and engage the kind of voters and coalitions that are going to win states like Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
First of all, Donald Trump came in making a whole lot of promises to working people that he did not keep. He said he was going to help farmers. He said he was going to help auto workers. Farmers are now looking at bankruptcy, soybeans rotting in bills. Auto workers, we expect perhaps hundreds of thousands will be out of jobs by the end of the year. Jerome Powell just dropped the interest rates, and he admitted why. Because of this so-called trade policy that this president has that has been nothing more than the Trump trade tax that has resulted in American families spending as much as $1.4 billion more a month on everything from shampoo to washing machines. He betrayed the American people. He betrayed American families, and he will lose this election because folks are clear that he has done nothing except try to beat people down instead of lift people up, and that's what we want in the next president of the United States.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
Secretary Castro, this was for you. Wage growth is up, stocks are rising, unemployment is near historic lows, including for Latinos and African Americans. You have all outlined plans, but you in particular, that could end up raising taxes. How can you guarantee that won't hurt the economy?
Well, first of all, there are a lot of Americans right now that are hurting. Just go and ask the folks that just received notice that they're going to get laid off by General Motors, or ask the many folks who are sleeping on the streets in big cities and small towns across the United States, or ask fast food workers that I joined a couple of weeks ago that are working for minimum wage and can't provide for their families or pay the rent. So the idea that America is doing just fine is wrong. Not only that, this president always likes to take credit, like he did this. We've now had about 105 straight months of positive job growth, the longest streak in American history. Over 80 months of that was due to President Barack Obama. Thank you, Barack Obama. Thank you, Barack Obama. So, I believe that we need to invest in what will ensure that Americans can prosper in the years to come, making sure they have the knowledge and skills to compete in the 21st century economy, ensuring that they can afford the rent where they live, and that they have health care so that they don't have to worry about going homeless because they can't afford a medical procedure.
Thank you, Secretary Castro. I want to turn now to a question about trade, and for Congresswoman Gabbard. Many saw the Trans-Pacific Partnership issue as something that would be a critical tool to deal with the rise of China. You were against it. How would you ensure that the United States is able to remain competitive against China on the world stage?
By pushing for fair trade, not trade deals that give away the sovereignty of the American people and our country, that give away American jobs, and that threaten our environment. These are the three main issues with that massive trade deal, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I think the central one was the fact that it gave away our sovereignty to a panel of international corporations whose rulings would supersede any domestic law that we would pass, either a federal law or a state or a local law. This is extremely dangerous and goes against the very values that we have as a country. What to speak of the fact that it would have a negative impact on domestic jobs and that it lacked clear protections for our environment. These are the things that we have to keep at the forefront as we look to enact fair trade deals with other countries to make sure that we continue to be a thriving part of our global economy.
So to be clear, Congresswoman, would you keep President Trump's tariffs on China in place?
I would not, because the approach that President Trump has taken has been extremely volatile without any clear strategic plan, and it has a ravaging and devastating effect on our domestic manufacturers, on our farmers who are already struggling and now failing to see the light of day because of the plan that Trump has taken.
Vice President Biden, would you rejoin the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which, of course, the President Trump withdrew from? Please respond.
I'd renegotiate it. We make up 25% of the world's economy. In order, either China is going to write the rules of the road for the 21st century on trade, or we are. We have to join with the 40% of the world that we had with us, and this time make sure that there's no one sitting at that table doing the deal unless environmentalists are there and labor is there. And to make sure we equip our workers first to compete by investing in them now, in the things to make them more competitive. That's what we have to do. Otherwise, they are going to write the rules of the road. We must have the rest of the world join us to keep them in check from abusing.
Thank you. Vice President Biden, just to be clear, would you or would you not rejoin the TPP, yes or no?
I would not rejoin the TPP as it was initially put forward. I would insist that we renegotiate pieces of that with the Pacific nations that we had in South America and North America so that we could bring them together to hold China accountable for the rules of us setting the rules of the road as to how trade should be conducted. Otherwise, they're going to do exactly what they're doing, fill the vacuum, and run the table.
Thank you, sir. Mayor de Blasio, you also oppose the deal. Please respond.
Yeah, and I just want to ask this question of all the candidates, but particularly of Vice President Biden. President Trump is trying to sell NAFTA 2.0. He's got a new name for it. It's just as dangerous as the old NAFTA. It's going to take away American jobs like the old NAFTA, like it did to Michigan. And we cannot have Democrats be party to a new NAFTA. So, Vice President, I believe you're the only person on the stage who voted for the original NAFTA. Are you ready to say here and now that you will oppose a new NAFTA and that what you will believe in, which a lot of us hope for, is trade treaties that empower organized labor across the boundaries of the world and give working people power again, not
Mr.
just
Vice President?
multinational corporations?
Yes.
Your response? Your response, sir?
Yes.
That's it?
No, he said, would I insist that labor be engaged? The answer is yes.
I consider that a victory.
Well, I love your affection for me. You spent a lot of time with me.
You know what? We believe in redemption, Joe. We believe in redemption in this party.
Well, I tell you what, I hope you're part of it.
Okay, I want to ask a question of Senator Bennett now. Senator, CNN reached out to Michigan Democratic primary voters for their most pressing question. Ferris from Flint, Michigan, has this question. Here in Detroit, our economy has seen firsthand how technology and automation can displace workers and create uncertainty around human job security. How would you balance these disruptions created by technology with the beneficial impact of technology on our economy?
Dana, this goes to the last question you asked as well, which is how are we going to remain competitive? It's not just about trade, which we were talking about earlier. It's about whether we're going to invest in this country anymore. Since 2001, we have cut $5 trillion worth of taxes. Almost all of that has gone to the wealthiest people in America. We have made the income inequality worse, not better, through the policies of the federal government. We've spent $5.6 trillion in the Middle East. That's $12 or $13 trillion that, from the point of view of driving the economy in Michigan or anywhere else in America, we might as well just have lit that money on fire. We've got to stop doing that. And we need to invest in America again. For the money that we've spent that I just described, we could have fixed every road and bridge in this country. We could have fixed every airport that needs to be fixed. We could have fixed not just Flint, but every water system in this country. We could have made Social Security solvent for my children.
Thank you, Senator.
But we did none of it because of self-serving politicians in Washington, D.C., who voted for deals that were good for them,
Senator Bennett,
but not
thank you
for
very
Michigan
much.
or the American
people. Your time is up, sir. Mr. Yang. Mr. Yang, women, on average, earn 80 cents, about 80 cents, for every dollar earned by men. Senator Harris wants to fine companies that don't close their gender pay gaps. As an entrepreneur, do you think a stiff fine will change how companies pay their female employees?
I have seen firsthand the inequities in the business world where women are concerned, particularly in startups and entrepreneurship. We have to do more at every step. And if you're a woman entrepreneur, the obstacles start not just at home, but then when you seek a mentor or an investor, often they don't look like you, and they might not think your idea is the right one. In order to give women a leg up, what we have to do is we have to think about women in every situation, including the ones who are in exploitative and abusive jobs and relationships around the country. I'm talking about the waitress who's getting harassed by her boss at the diner, who might have a business idea, but right now is stuck where she is. What we have to do is we have to give women the economic freedom to be able to improve their own situations and start businesses. And the best way to do this is by putting a dividend of $1,000 a month into their hands. It would be a game changer for women around the country because we know that women do more of the unrecognized and uncompensated work in our society. It will not change unless we change it. And I say that's just what we do.
Senator Harris, your response.
I think that's support of my proposal, which is this. Since 1963, when we passed the Equal Pay Act, we have been talking about the fact women are not paid equally for equal work. Fast forward to the year of our Lord, 2019, and women are paid 80 cents on the dollar, black women 61 cents, Native American women 58 cents, Latinas 53 cents. I'm done with the conversation. So yes, I am proposing, in order to deal with this, one, I'm going to require corporations to post on their website whether they are paying women equally for equal work. Two, they will be fined for every 1% differential between what they are paying men and women. They will be fined 1% of their previous year's profits. That'll get everybody's attention.
Thank you, Senator.
Time for action.
Senator Gillibrand, what's your response? Will fining companies help solve the problem?
I think we have to have a broader conversation about whether we value women and whether we want to make sure women have every opportunity in the workplace. And I want to address Vice President Biden directly. When the Senate was debating middle-class affordability for childcare, he wrote an op-ed. He voted against it, the only vote. But what he wrote in an op-ed was that he believed that women working outside the home would, quote, create the deterioration of family. He also said that women who were working outside the home were, quote, avoiding responsibility. And I just need to understand, as a woman who's worked my entire career as the primary wage earner, as the primary caregiver, in fact, my second son, Henry, is here. And I had him when I was a member of Congress. So under Vice President Biden's analysis, am I serving in Congress resulting in the deterioration of the family because I had access to quality, affordable daycare? I just want to know what he meant when he said that.
That was a long time ago, and here's what it was about. It would have given people making today $100,000 a year a tax break for childcare. I did not want that. I wanted the childcare to go to people making less than $100,000, and that's what it was about. As a single father, who in fact raised 3 children for 5 years by myself, I have some idea what it cost. I support making sure that every single solitary person needing childcare get an $8,000 tax credit now. That would put 700,000 women back to work, increase the GDP by almost 0.8%. It's the right thing to do. If we can give tax breaks to corporations for these things, why can't we do it this way?
But Mr. Vice President, you didn't answer my question. What did you mean when you said when a woman works outside the home, it's resulting in, quote, the deterioration of family?
No,
that we are avoiding, these are quotes, it was the title of the op-ed.
No.
And that just causes concern for me because we know America's women are working. 4 out of 10 moms have to work. They're the primary or sole wage earners. They actually have to put food on the table. 8 out of 10 moms are working today. Most women have to work to provide for their kids. Many women want to be working to provide for their communities and to help people.
Let the Vice President
either you
respond.
don't believe it today, or what did you mean when you said it
In
then?
the very beginning, my deceased wife worked, but we had children. My present wife has worked all the way through raising our children. The fact of the matter is, the situation is one that I don't know what's happened. I wrote the Violence Against Women Act, Lilly Ledbetter. I was deeply involved in making sure the equal pay amendments. I was deeply involved in all these things. I came up with the It's On Us proposal to see to it that women were treated more decently on college campuses. You came to Syracuse University with me and said it was wonderful. I'm passionate about the concern, making sure women are treated equally. I don't know what's happened except that you're now running for president.
So I understand, Mr. Vice President, I respect you deeply. I respect you deeply. But those words are very specific. You said women working outside the home would lead to the deterioration of family. My grandmother worked outside the home.
So
my mother worked outside the home. And
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand.
So, well, he has.
I want to bring Senator Harris
Either
into
he
this
no
conversation.
longer believes it. I mean, I just think he
I
needs to.
never believed it.
Thank you,
okay.
Senator Harris. Please respond.
Well, listen, I mean, talk about now running for president and you change your position. On the Hyde Amendment, Vice President, where you made a decision for years to withhold resources to poor women to have access to reproductive health care, and including women who were the victims of rape and incest. Do you now say that you have evolved and you regret that? Because you've only, since you've been running for president this time, said that you in some way would take that back, or you didn't agree with the decision that you made over many, many years. And this directly impacted so many women in our country. And I personally prosecuted rape cases and child molestation cases. And the experience that those women have, those children have, and that they would then be denied the resources,
Senator. Let the Vice President respond,
I think
please.
is unacceptable.
The fact is that the senator knows that's not my position. Everybody on this stage has been in the Congress, and the Senate or House has voted for the Hyde Amendment at some point. The Hyde Amendment in the past was available because there was other access for those kinds of services provided privately. But once I wrote the legislation making sure that every single woman would in fact have an opportunity to have health care paid for by the federal government, everyone, that could no longer stand. I support a woman's right to choose. I support it's a constitutional right. I've supported it. I will continue to support it. And I will in fact move as president to see to that the Congress legislates that is the law as well.
Well,
Thank
why
you,
did
Mr.
it
Vice
take you
President.
so
Governor
long
Inslee,
to
your
change your
response?
position on the Hyde Amendment? Why did it take so long until you were running for president to change your position on the Hyde Amendment?
Because there was not full federal funding for all reproductive services prior to this point.
Okay. Thank you. Governor Inslee, your response?
I would suggest that we need to broaden our discussion. I would suggest we need to think about a bigger scandal in America, which is that in professions and careers where women have been more than the majority, they have been almost always underpaid. And that is why this year I'm proud to be the governor who won the largest pay increase for our educators in the United States. And I believe that that is long, long overdue. I think it is true for nursing staff as well. And I'm glad that we've now passed new measures. And I'm glad that we've increased our union membership 10% so unions can stand up for women as well.
I want to turn to foreign policy, if we can. Senator Booker, there are about 14,000 U.S. service members in Afghanistan right now. If elected, will they still be in Afghanistan by the end of your first year in office?
Well, first of all, I want to say very clearly that I will not do foreign policy by tweet, as Donald Trump seems to do all the time. A guy that literally tweets out that we're pulling our troops out before his generals even know about it is creating a dangerous situation for our troops in places like Afghanistan. And so I will bring our troops home, and I will bring them home as quickly as possible. But I will not set during a campaign an artificial deadline. I will make sure we do it expeditiously, we do it safely to not create a vacuum that's ultimately going to destabilize the Middle East and perhaps create the environment for terrorism and for extremism to threaten our nation.
Congresswoman Gabbard, you're the only veteran on the stage. Please respond.
This is real in a way that's very difficult to convey in words. I was deployed to Iraq in 2005 during the height of the war, where I served in a field medical unit where every single day I saw the high cost of war. Just this past week, 2 more of our soldiers were killed in Afghanistan. My cousin is deployed to Afghanistan right now. Nearly 300 of our Hawaii National Guard soldiers are deployed to Afghanistan. 14,000 service members are deployed there. This is not about arbitrary deadlines. This is about leadership. The leadership I will bring to do the right thing, to bring our troops home within the first year in office, because they shouldn't have been there this long. For too long, we've had leaders who have been arbitrating foreign policy from ivory towers in Washington without any idea about the cost and the consequence, the toll that it takes on our service members, on their families. We have to do the right thing, end these wasteful regime change wars, and bring our troops home.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Mr. Yang, Iran has now breached the terms of the 2015 nuclear deal after President Trump withdrew the U.S. from the deal. And that puts Iran closer to building a nuclear weapon, the ability to do so at the very least. You've said if Iran violates the agreement, the U.S. would need to respond, quote, very strongly. So how would a President Yang respond right now?
I would move to de-escalate tensions in Iran because they're responding to the fact that we pulled out of this agreement. And it wasn't just us and Iran. There were many other world powers that were part of that multilateral agreement. We'd have to try and re-enter that agreement, renegotiate the timelines because the timelines now don't make as much sense. But I've signed a pledge to end the forever wars. Right now, our strength abroad reflects our strength at home. What's happened, really? We've fallen apart at home, so we elected Donald Trump, and now we have this erratic and unpredictable relationship with even our long-standing partners and allies. What we have to do is we have to start investing those resources to solve the problems right here at home. We've spent trillions of dollars and lost thousands of American lives in conflicts that had unclear benefits. We've been in a constant state of war for 18 years. This is not what the American people want. I would bring the troops home, I would de-escalate tensions with Iran, and I would start investing our resources in our own communities.
Governor Inslee, your response?
Well, I think that these are matters of great and often difficult judgment, and there is no sort of primer for presidents to read. We have to determine whether a potential president has adequate judgment in these decisions. I was only one of 2 members on this panel today who were called to make a judgment about the Iraq War. I was a relatively new member of Congress, and I made the right judgment because it was obvious to me that George Bush was fanning the flames of war. Now we face similar situations where we recognize we have a president who'd be willing to beat the drums of war. We need a president who can stand up against the drums of war and make rational decisions. That was the right vote, and I believe it.
Thank you, Governor. Vice President Biden, he was obviously suggesting that you made the wrong decision and had bad judgment when you voted to go to war in Iraq as a U.S. Senator.
I did make a bad judgment trusting the president saying he was only doing this to get inspectors in and get the UN to agree to put inspectors in. From the moment shock and awe started, from that moment, I was opposed to the effort, and I was outspoken as much as anyone at all in the Congress and administration. Secondly, I was asked by the president in the first meeting we had on Iraq. He turned and said, Joe, get our combat troops out in front of the entire national security team. And one of the proudest moments of my life was to stand there in Afwa Palace and tell everyone that we're coming, all our combat troops are coming home. I opposed the surge in Afghanistan. This long overdue, we should have not in fact, gone into Afghanistan.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Vice President. I would like to bring in the person on the stage who served in Iraq, Congresswoman Gabbard. Your response to what Vice President Biden just said.
We were all lied to. This is the betrayal. This is the betrayal to the American people, to me, to my fellow service members. We were all lied to, told that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, was working with al-Qaeda, and that this posed a threat to the American people. So I enlisted after 9/11 to protect our country, to go after those who attacked us on that fateful day, who took the lives of thousands of Americans. The problem is that this current president is continuing to betray us. We were supposed to be going after al-Qaeda, but over years now, not only have we not gone after al-Qaeda, who is stronger today than they were in 9/11, our president is supporting al-Qaeda.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Let's talk about
Iran. Thank you, please.
We didn't talk about Iran.
Please.
We're on a march to war in Iran right now, and we blew by it.
Mayor, the rules. Please follow the rules.
I respect the rules, but
Mayor,
we have to
Mayor,
stop
thank you
this
very
march
much.
to war in Iran.
We're
and
going on, and we're going
Party
to talk
has
about another
stand up
subject.
for it.
Mayor, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's talk about now the former special counsel Robert Mueller's appearance in front of Congress last week. When asked whether or not the president could be charged with a crime after leaving office, his answer was yes. Senator Harris, you have criticized President Trump for interfering with the Justice Department. And just last month, you said if you were elected president, your Justice Department would, quote, have no choice and should go forward with the obstruction of justice charges against former President Trump. Why is it okay for you to advocate for the Justice Department to prosecute somebody, but President Trump, not him?
Well, I would never direct the Department of Justice to do whatever it believes it should do. But listen, look, we all watched his testimony. I read the report. There are 10 clear incidents of obstruction of justice by this president, and he needs to be held accountable. I've seen people go to prison for far less. And the reality of it is that we have a person in the White House right now who has been shielded by a memo in the United States Department of Justice that says a sitting president cannot be indicted. I believe the American people are right to say there should be consequence and accountability for everyone, and no one is above the law, including the President of the United States.
Senator Booker, your response?
My response is exactly that. I've read the report. I've read the redacted versions of the report. We have something that is astonishing going on in the United States of America. We have a president that is not acting like the leader of the free world. He's acting like an authoritarian against the actual Constitution that he swore an oath to uphold. And so this is a difference with a lot of us on this debate stage. I believe that we in the United States Congress should start impeachment proceedings immediately. And I'll tell you this, Debbie Stabenow now has joined my call for starting impeachment proceedings because he is now stonewalling Congress, not allowing or subjecting themselves to the checks and balances. We swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. The politics of this be damned. When we look back in history at what happened when a president of the United States started acting more like an authoritarian leader than the leader of the free world, the question is what will we have done? And I believe the Congress should do its job.
Senator Booker, thank you very much. Secretary Castro, what's your response?
Well, I agree. I was the first of the candidates to call on Congress to begin impeachment proceedings. There are 10 different instances that Robert Mueller has pointed out where this president either obstructed justice or attempted to obstruct justice. And I believe that they should go forward with impeachment proceedings. As to the question of what my Department of Justice would do, I agree with those who say that a president should not direct an attorney general specifically to prosecute or not prosecute. However, I believe that the evidence is plain and clear, and that if it gets that far, that you're likely to see a prosecution of Donald Trump.
Thank you, Secretary. Mayor de Blasio, I'm going to bring you in. What's your response?
I think it's obvious at this point in our history that the president has committed the crimes worthy of impeachment. But I want to caution my fellow Democrats, while we move in every way we can for impeachment, we have to remember at the same time, the American people are out there looking for us to do something for them in their lives. And what they see when they turn on the TV or go online is just talk about impeachment. We need more talk about working people and their lives. For example, are we really ready? And I ask people on this stage this question. Are we ready to make sure that the wealthy pay their fair share in taxes? That's something every American wants to know about. That's something they want answers to right now. So yeah, move for impeachment, but don't forget to do the people's business and to stand up for working people, because that's how we're actually going to beat Donald Trump. The best impeachment is beating him in the election of 2020.
Mayor, thank you very much. Senator Bennett, how do you respond to this conversation?
I think, look, as we go forward here, we need to recognize a very practical reality, which is that we are 4 months away. We've got the August recess. Then we are 4 months away from the Iowa caucuses. And I just want to make sure whatever we do doesn't end up with an acquittal by Mitch McConnell in the Senate, which it surely would. And then President Trump would be running saying that he had been acquitted by the United States Congress. I believe we have a moral obligation to beat Donald Trump. He has to be a single-term president, and we can't do anything that plays into his hands. We were talking earlier about climate up here. It's so important. Donald Trump should be the last climate denier that's ever in the White House.
Senator Bennett, thank you very much. Secretary Castro, please respond.
But we need to be smart about how we're running, or we're going to give him a second
Secretary,
term.
please,
We
your
can't
turn.
do it.
Well, let me first say that I really do believe that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. All of us have a vision for the future of the country that we're articulating to the American people. We're going to continue to do that. We have an election coming up. At the same time, Senator, I think that too many folks in the Senate and in the Congress have been spooked by 1998. I believe that the times are different. And in fact, I think that folks are making a mistake by not pursuing impeachment. The Mueller report clearly details that he deserves it. And what's going to happen in the fall of next year, of 2020, if they don't impeach him, is he's going to say, you see, the Democrats didn't go after me on impeachment. And you know why? Because I didn't do anything wrong. These folks that always investigate me, they're always trying to go after me. When it came down to it, they didn't go after me there because I didn't do anything wrong. Conversely, if Mitch McConnell is the one that lets him off the hook, we're going to be able to say, well, sure, they impeached him in the House,
Castro,
but his friend Mitch McConnell, Moscow
Thank you,
Mitch,
Secretary.
let him off the hook.
Senator Bennett, please respond.
I don't disagree with that. You just said it better than I did. We have to walk and chew gum at the same time. It is incredibly unusual for members of Congress to be able to do that. And I'm glad that Secretary Castro has the ambition.
My brother can. He's here
That's
tonight.
what I was going to say. It's your brother that's giving you that good feeling about the Congress. That's what we should do.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, gentlemen.